Good morning, and welcome to another Sunday morning with the Blerd Church of Anime. I am your preacher, your teacher, your cult leader, whatever you want to call me. I am Black Star, here to hit you with another hopefully inspiring message based off of anime, manga, animation in general, all things that is nerdy. Y'all, it has been a week. I'm not going to even ask if you had a good week. I'm not going to even say if I had a good week. I can just say it's been a week. There is a lot going on around the world, and especially in the US of A. I'm gonna say America for short, and I'm gonna keep a buck with y'all. Like I had a different sermon message planned, and now I think I might just use that for around Valentine's Day, which may be controversial. It's fine. I do what I want here. But also, oh look, my familiar showed up. But also, I I'm concerned. I've been concerned. I've been concerned about this country, the US of A, for a while. But there is so much happening, and I know people are feeling defeated, people are feeling anxious, people are not sure what to do, and I don't think that is necessarily always true for our Blerd fans, our Blerd people. But for anybody else who may stumble onto this, I hope I have a word based on resistance and an anime that is really good about resistance. Now, to be very honest, I wasn't sure I was going to get into this anime quite yet because I'm not an expert. I have not finished it. It is over 1,000 episodes long. So you already know what I'm talking about. One Piece. Yes, One Piece. That beautiful anime. And I don't want to get too far ahead in the story because, one, I have not finished it. In fact, I stopped years ago. I think it's like season 14. The season with white beards and the Marines. Because something really bad happened and I was very upset. And I thought I'll give it a couple of arcs and maybe the bad thing that happened would be retcon and they'd come back. And nope, nope. That is, what do they call it in Spider-Man? Uh, Not an anchor moment. It's the one that's the defining moment. It's the Uncle Ben moment, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So I just, and after that, like it just kept going further and further away from me, and I kept saying, well, I'm gonna go back and rewatch from the beginning, especially those old For Kids episodes that have been redubbed and all of this, and I just haven't done it. Now that it's 1,000 plus episodes, it's been running for like 20 years. It feels so hard to get back into it, but the live action really made me think like, no, you actually really like this anime. You really love the characters. Just start it. Just get into it. So that is the plan. It feels like a commitment. Like I feel like I'm getting into a long-term relationship again to try to catch up on One Piece. But that is my plan. It is one of my resolutions, my goal for 2026 is to get caught up with One Piece. And then I think I'm going to pick longer animes, like animes that are over 400 or 500 episodes. So I may have started and never quite finished because maybe I got so bored with it, or they got to an arc that I wasn't feeling. Especially Bleach. I was heavy into Bleach, and then at some point when Aizen cheated death for like the third time. Oh my gosh, I hate Aizen. I just was like, I can't anymore. But I know there is more that's happening. Like I get some of the spoilers. I'm like, oh, I would love to see that. And I'm not just gonna skip ahead. I'm going to rewatch, reacquaint myself with these characters that I knew I already liked. So One Piece is on that. If you're an anime fan and you don't know about One Piece, let me give you the really short version. One Piece is the tale of Straw Hat Luffy, a young, super positive minded kid at some like he's just like 17, 18, who wants to become king of the pirates. Now, how do you become king of the pirates? Well, apparently you find this massive treasure called the One Piece, haha, the name of the show in the manga. And this is the treasure that was hidden by one of the most famous pirates in the world of One Piece, Goji Roger, who uh taught. who told pirates all around the world when he was being executed, like, find my One Piece, you'll be considered king of pirates. And that has been the lore. And you got to go to the Grand Line to find it. And that is Luffy's goal, to start his own crew and to find the One Piece and be recognized as king of the pirates. Very simple. You're like, okay, 1,000 episodes in, he hasn't found the One Piece, what's going on? Because he has a lot of side projects. And really, a lot of the side projects is what a really great shonen always does, and that is friendship. No, seriously, you get to see him really adding people to his crew. You get to learn a lot more about the lore of the world, this government systems, the system of the pirates. And really, it's the crazy cast of characters, both protagonists and antagonists, those who are part of the Straw Hat crew, which is Luffy's crew, those who work with him, those he's fought, like people who family relations, all it's just like so many different crews of pirates and non-pirates that you get to learn each different world that keeps you really invested in the world of One Piece, even though you're like, okay, Luffy has eventually like find this thing, right? And you watch Luffy and his crewmates grow and become stronger pirates as they face tougher and tougher foes. Why One Piece when we're dealing with such craziness in America around authoritative governments, government oversight, being killed by those who are supposed to somewhat protect you, which is not a new thing in America at all. Well, I think One Piece has become like um, this cultural milestone for those who are thinking about resistance. And I'm going to talk about why. A really big piece of One Piece, and just like how they have really made a big cultural impact is that like the black pirate flag, like the Jolly Roger, the symbol that they use of the Straw Hat Pirates, just like the cross and bones with the straw hats, which I think most of you already know what I'm talking about, but just in case there's some people, I'll put it up on the screen. It's become a prominent like protest symbol in certain countries. Because One Piece is one of the most it's a big three for 20 years for a reason. It's definitely a super popular, even though people have like fallen off, come back, all the things on the manga and the anime, because it's been running for 20 plus years at this point. But as I was saying, it's a really big protest symbol. I think they've used it in like Indonesia, Madagascar, I think the Philippines for some of the Gen Z protests. They had Nepal about their democracy and like dealing with the police and the military. And it made sense. It made sense when you know the background of One Piece. And again, I'm not trying to spoil too far in the future because I want this to be kind of accessible to new fans of One Piece as well as people who may have only seen the live action, which is, a good little chunk, not a good little chunk compared to the whole, but like, we met some of the main Straw Hat crew and we're getting the second season soon this year. So I don't want to go too in depth about things you may not see for a while yet. But what makes One Piece a really, really good study in liberation and resistance? Because I'm getting worried with these comments, not just about, the young woman who was killed by ICE agents this past week, Miss Good, and again, not the only person to have been killed by ICE agents, even recently. There's a black man who was killed on New Year's Day. I'm trying to remember his last name. I'll have that for you in a second. But there's a lot going on around what does it mean to be hurt in by state violence, which for Black folk we know is nothing new for us, unfortunately. And the rise of a government that tells you that this is your fault, that it's all standard. I see so many people that like online, which again is not the real world. There's always going to be trolls and bots and just some brain dead folk, but like putting up sick memes and things that's like comply or die, which is scary to think that that's what people think you should do when you live in a quote unquote free nation. Because I think what a lot of people have already realized, and then some people now with this latest ICE killing, um, oops, did I say that? sorry, it's a fear that maybe the government's not here to help you. Welcome, welcome to this side of the internet. But let's talk in the cases of One Piece instead of real life, shall we? 'Cause I'm sure everybody else has been traumatized by the videos we've been able to watch online and the clearly unhinged message from the government that's telling us not to believe the thing that we watched. Yeah. So One Piece. Let's start off with Luffy. Luffy is this idealistic young man who has been enamored by pirate culture since he met this one really great pirate named Shanks. Always wanted to be part of Shanks' crew, but of course you're a little kid. They can't just take you out on the sea, whatever. But eventually vows to start his own crew and become king of the pirates. It becomes like this promise he makes with Shanks. Luffy is hopelessly optimistic. That is one of his best traits. He is so positive and believing like all I need is a ship and a crew that has my back, and we're gonna do this thing. And we're gonna like make it to the Grand Line, we're gonna make it to the One Piece and everything be smooth sailing. He is not the deepest of thinkers, which I think helps him really like aim for this goal. But while aiming for this goal, because Luffy is such a positive and kind-hearted person, he comes in contact with people who have such huge trauma and have been dealing with oppression in a lot of different ways. And there's this running gag with Luffy that he just finds all the broken people and they just become his problem. He's like, "Oh, you're broken? You need a friend? Awesome. We're gonna like stop the thing that makes you broken or help it, and then you're like now indentured to us to be my friend and be on my crew." Like he just picks up all the broken lost toys and we love him for it. It gives us such a great crew on the Straw Hats. What he seems to does do is he goes from ship to ship. He's meeting people and he sees them in trouble. Like Luffy is not one to look at people being frightened, scared, um, sad, and is just unrationally angry. Luffy is always there for the scared people. From the very first chapter you read, or the very first episode, Toby on the pirate ship, and he's just being harangued. He's like, I didn't want to be a pirate. I wanted to be a Navy officer. Um, Luffy doesn't make a distinction. You are a possible friend. You are somebody who feels like you're being pushed. He's like here for the little guy, the person who won't be able to stand up for themselves. And he acts and he tries to get you out of the situation. He sees bullies and he's like, no, 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 don't bully my new friends. We're going to do it. And yes, he uses violence because he has the gum gum fruit, devil fruit powers and he can turn himself into rubber. But it's one thing he's like to get the bully away from the person who is feeling intimidated, scared, and sad. Um, and he makes friends. He makes lifelong attachments with people this way of always trying to help a person or a group or people in need. I think a lot of the One Piece arts, whether in the manga and in the anime, is Luffy coming across people in need and him and jumping in fully face first and the rest of his crew being like, okay, let's get this idiot out the trouble that he's already started because he's found people in a bad situation. And I think most of his crew don't mind it because he got them out of a bad situation. Luffy was always down to help when they needed support the most, even when they couldn't ask for the support or didn't know to ask for support, and didn't think anybody would help them. Zoro, our favorite swordsman, free swordsman, he's about to get executed. And I want to talk a little bit about him more later about, what does it mean for him to get executed by the state, the world government, the Navy, when he was doing part of their work, helping hunt and kill pirates and collecting bounties on what the world government says is their main enemy, pirates, because they're unlawfulness and all that kind of stuff. You have Nami, who her island is taken over by a ruthless gang of pirates, and she offers to help them in hopes of being able to someday buy her island's freedom. And she's constantly betrayed and she feels absolutely hopeless. She betrays the Straw Hats first. And then Luffy's like, that's okay. Do you need help? And for the first time, she's like, yes, I need help. And they deliver her island. Um, Nico, oh, I love Nico so much. And her story is super complicated. Her trauma, oh my gosh, leads her to be just one of the most fascinating characters on there. Revenge for what the government did to her island and her people. And I don't want to give too much of the spoilers away. And her feeling like she's not worthy to live after being the sole survivor of a genocide is crazy. And the sacrifices that the Straw Hats make to help her dream come true and to get her out of a bad spot, and even the sacrifices she makes when she felt like, oh my gosh, they actually truly love me and care about me, is also amazing. Because I think this also shows how the liberation of others can lead them to help liberate you and do their best to help because of the reciprocal nature of the friendship there. But I mean, they go to different places from Alaska, all these places, and they just see people oppressing other people. And then the biggest oppression of all is the world government with their military wings, the Navy, because it's mostly a blue ocean planet, so it makes more sense to have a Navy than like an army. Um, and just being at odds with the government that is, I mean, keeping world peace across all these different islands and nations and tribes and different types of um, people, because you don't just have humans, you have like dwarves who look kind of like fairies and all these other like the fishmen, the merfolk, all these kind of different people, but as most governments do it, with a very shady lens where they say, oh, pirates are our arch nemesis because pirates tend to be, bad people, who rob and steal and kill, like Argyle and his pirates that took over Nami's island and holding them for ransom. But then you also just have like Luffy and other pirates that are out there searching for freedom, and trying to like not be under the 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 thumb of the world government. And then there's some times where the world government realizes there's some pirates we just can't really fight back, and they give them carte blanche to do whatever. And that's also like, I thought you were trying to keep us safe, but no, they make deals with certain areas and let them hurt the people that they're supposed to protect, which means they're not as monogamous and caring about the good of all people as they claim to be, as we can see. You got revolutionaries who are fighting the world government because they've been harmed by it. As I mentioned before, the government did cause genocide of um, Nico's own people and her island, for them doing something that the government just felt like shouldn't be done and didn't give them a chance to 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 stop. Um, it really felt like they swore that Nico's island was aiming the dangerous weapon towards them in the car as they stood in front and decided to shoot three times, even though they were never trying to really overthrow the government. But whatever. It's whatever the people in charge says happen, that happens. And I think it's a testament to who Luffy is as a protagonist, wanting to help people and get people out of oppressive systems, and that the whole Straw Hat crew backs him up because they have been able to get out of jams and oppressive systems because of Luffy and just his tendency to meddle. That if he were to land in Hawaii or land in California or somewhere on the East Coast and he talked to the people and he's like, and saw kind of what's happening in America, and he's like, are y'all okay? Tell me if you're okay. And then he would be like, I think you're not okay, and then go to war with the government. I think a lot of anime fans here in the US of A would not be surprised. In fact, I think every time something crazy really happens where the government is talking about some extrajudicial killings, are murders and or something they did that was clearly illegal in our democratic laws, and then they're doing the whole 1984, this is not what you see, we did it because of this, this is what we say, and you're just gonna have to do it this way. This the way they're treating immigrants are people they see as a threat to how they treat immigrants. That includes judges who are standing up to them, the way they are treating poor communities, the way the cruelty of keeping SNAP benefits away from folk who need it most, and now trying to not give money to certain blue states for childcare as a way to say bend the knee. I think Luffy and crew would see all that happening, especially people like Sanji who would never let a person starve, but seeing how the government has decided, well, now you don't have money for food, mm, they would do something. And I feel like you're not a true One Piece fan if you can't get that out of the series. Like, this is the type of government that Luffy and crew, even some of the worst of the crew that be like, I don't care about other people, but coming to be like, this is insane, this is not okay. And I think what they do, of course, it's a shonen, so there's gonna be battles and fights, and they're dealing with other pirates or government officials who have special powers and can do all types of stuff. That is, that is part of the entertainment value of the show. But there, I think there's a real sense of, well, how do you resist? How do you, if you don't have a Luffy, you're not endlessly positive with the pirate crew and all these people can do these things. How do you resist? And one thing I really love about some of the nations or the islands that Luffy goes to, and while yeah, they're fighting the big bad like master pirate and his enhanced crew, is that he gives the people who are oppressed hope to say like, yeah, they're saying these things, but this is not okay. Yeah, they're claiming you have to do this, but this is not okay. And I mean, I get it. People who've been under an oppressive rule for so long, then they don't feel like they don't have the power back. You do start to comply. You say you got to comply or you'll die, and that death seems like the worst thing ever. But it only takes one or two people on that island who haven't given up. And that when Luffy comes around with the Straw Hat crew and they're like, this is messed up. And Luffy sees it for himself. He sees the people beaten down, trodden. He sees the unfairness. He sees the murder, the sneakiness, the assassinations, the fear, the way people are treated unfairly or one group is treated better than the other. And he gets mad for them. And he stands up and he says what a lot of people have been too afraid to say. And he stands up and he says, you can't do this. And as him and the other Straw Hats start to put themselves in harm's way to save these people, I mean, they're essentially doing this savior thing. What I also love that the show shows is that the people who are being saved start to fight back as well. That they decide we have to stand up for ourselves. And so in this real world, like Luffy's and the Straw Hats are not coming. Another country is probably not going to come and liberate us from our dictator the same way America apparently did to Venezuela. As much as we may like, make jokes about it, like Canada, come on down, like those overlords are not coming to help. But we as the people who are under the control, who are under the fear of what it means for our government to strike back at us when our government's supposed to be protecting us, that's a big deal. And if we watch a casual observer, someone who says, I'm not mad at you, and is trying to get out of the way and get themselves and their wife to safety, get taken out on the street like they are a criminal, what does that mean for you? And yeah, we could be like Nami and like join in hopes that maybe you might be able to ransom your village. But what we see with Nami is they never keep their word. They lie. You could be like Nico and become an assassin and join this other group because of your hatred, but you end up doing things you don't want to do. You start to think that your life isn't worth it. You could be like Zoro and hunt down the people they say are the bad ones. You could join the cold front that we will not mention that has been doing some of these extrajudicial killings. of actual citizens and be a bounty hunter. But once they no longer had a use for him, Zoro, I mean, he was going to be executed. That's where Luffy found him. So sometimes just taking part doesn't make you safe either. So taking part and keeping your mouth shut and trying to do it their way doesn't work, then what do? You stand up. Stand up. You don't automatically give them your compliance because they'll keep taking it and pushing it more and more. You don't let them tell you what you saw was incorrect. You don't let them spin the narrative. You build a crew. Because, yeah, Luffy's strong, but he doesn't ever do any of all of this by himself. And there are definitely some battles he loses. And then he goes and gets stronger. I mean, I stopped watching, not because he didn't, I mean, he lost the overall idea of what he wanted to do, didn't come to fruition, but he did achieve the thing he was setting out to do, which is such a heartbreak for me. And that. And in the point, and in the place of him doing that, he gets temporary allies that come out and help as well. I think as we go further in One Piece, you see it's not just the Straw Hat crew that's doing all the work. It's not the Straw Hat crew and the people on the island doing the work, but like people who had left, uh, groups who had vested interests, or the enemy of my enemy might be my friend in cases, especially when the bigger the enemy, the more those groups show up to help with the fight. And I can't promise you this will be easy. I'm not going to tell you that this will not be scary. And I'm not going to say there's not going to be any more casualties because clearly authoritarian governments are willing to go to toe and do the most horrific things. But you don't keep yourself safe when you let them step on you. Again, if you've only seen the Netflix version of the live action of One Piece, just think of Argyle and how he treated Nami and the rest of that village, the rest of that island. No matter what she did, no matter what she stole, no matter how much she helped, it's never good enough because she was a resource. He was never let Nami free. I think a lot of people this week have seen videos and have heard the rhetoric and said, oh my gosh, if this good white woman can be shot to death, and then they start saying all these horrible things about her and her family, about who she is, and calling her a domestic terrorist. What does that say they could do to me? And I think a lot of people are starting to wake up. And I think that's a big part. We got to wake up. We got to see that like no amount of compliance is going to be enough for them as they continue to put their foots on our necks and their boots on our backs and their guns in our faces and claim that we're the dangerous ones when we're not the ones kidnapping people. We're not the ones zip tying children, throwing chemicals into the faces of folk. We're simply watching to make sure you do respect the rights of both legal citizens and those who are immigrants. They've shown us who they are. I think we need to pull our Jolly Roger up. I think that the Straw Hats are a group of very imperfect people, again, with their own traumas, who try to get along in the world to deal with the unfairness of the governments and the systems that are already in place for them. And then once they came together, realized they were stronger together and that they were able to really make a dent into it. And they also kept each other straight and narrow. Zoro doesn't just join Luffy because Luffy was like, I'll save you. And he's like, I hate pirates. And he promises to cut Luffy down the moment he steps out of this very box of being helpful. But Luffy's never strayed. Nami wants to navigate the world. She has a dream. And she stays with them so she can continue doing her dream, but she also puts her neck out for others because someone else did that for her. From Chopper, who we get to see this coming season, and Usopp, who always wanted to be a pirate but known as a notorious liar, and sometimes, doesn't always get along with Luffy and his decisions, but is able to recognize that what he does and does for other people was done for him as well. And it's not gonna be perfect. They definitely fight, they get mad, they do all these type of things, and at the end, it's like, what is the final goal? I think my final goal, and this is personally for me, you will have to find your own, is I want to see the humanity in all people, especially in my neighbors, the folk I live with. I don't want anyone to be terrified for their lives, that their government's coming to get them as they don't bother anybody. Yeah, if you're someone hurting people and harming people and ripping people off, yeah, you should be afraid of the government. They should be going after you. From the PDF files to, serial killers to folk who are actively causing folk to lose all of their money and starve in the streets. You should be afraid. But people who are just trying their best, living their life, feeding their kids, going to work, paying their taxes, I you shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't fear. And I feel like that has been twisted. So yeah, call it a Luffy. I'm gonna be optimistic. I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna be like, nah, you shouldn't be doing this. No, I'm not rubber. Then the bullets won't bounce off of me. But I won't let that stop me. I won't let that mean that I will comply and be kidnapped, be inconvenienced, just because I'm afraid. So to everybody else who's been out there since, especially in Minneapolis, and I know Wisconsin and other Midwest and other cities like in New York and LA have been out protesting. Thank you. We see you. Keep it up. But not just for her, but also for Kevin from LA, who was shot by an off-duty ICE agent on New Year's Eve. Like what is going on? So two people I think were in Seattle, Venezuelan immigrants who were shot at in the car as well. Currently getting more story about that. This is becoming a trend and it's not a good one. So let's take back the narrative and make a trend where we stand up for our neighbors. Because by standing up for our neighbors, we're also standing up for ourselves. And there's many different ways to do that. I'm not saying you gotta go out and watch ICE. I'm not saying you gotta go out and be violent. Please don't. But I want us to hold each other accountable. Because we're the straw hats at this point. We need to be their protest signal. And I think that's it that I have. I'm hoping next week is better. I'm hoping that the media calls out the BS that is being sprouted by the talking heads, especially those in government. I hope the good family, as well as, but I feel like no one has really been talking about him. Keith, not Kevin. I hope for the family of Keith Porter, who was killed by an off-duty ICE agent in LA. I hope they get justice. And while I don't think justice has to mean in the criminal courts, sue them, take them for every dollar they have, bankrupt the agency if you can. Same thing to the good family. Same thing to any citizen who has been detained and held by ICE, especially if they were taken to another location. I don't care if it was for 10 minutes. Sue them. Learn your rights. Know what can and can't be done. I think that's where you can start. Know your rights. Make sure everybody else knows their rights. Call them out when they're trampling on your rights. That's how we hold them accountable. That's how we stand up. The first thing you can do. So yeah. I hope this was inspiring. I hope it didn't just make you angry. I feel like I'm getting angrier the more I talk about it. But I'm going to get started with One Piece. I want to feel that triumph after you come through hell and back, fighting some crazy powered pirate or Navy official or whoever. That's what I want. So, till next week, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
The Blerd Church of Anime podcast is produced by Blackstar, aka Lauren Tillman, written by Lauren Tillman, and hosted by Lauren Tillman. Music created by EL47.